Hello, everybody. My name is Thomas Fratkin, and this is the Round Table Chats podcast, a platform where ideas are challenged and the life stories of extraordinary people from around the globe are explored, one conversation at a time. Today, my guest is Navneet Nishant. Navneet is a prolific artist and full of wisdom on how to lead a more creative existence. This episode may just change your life. Without further ado, here's Navneet. Navneet, welcome to the round table.
Thank you, Thomas. Glad to be here.
Excellent. A question I always like to start with is, what are you grateful for?
Mm. I think I'm grateful for being alive right now, quite honestly. I'm grateful for this day. The answer changes every minute, quite honestly. But in this moment, and as of this morning, I think I'm just grateful for having a good life that I have and being able to be here, talk to you, and just this thing that is going around us.
What do you think constitutes a good life in your eyes?
If you're able to go to your bed uh, without having an anxiety about tomorrow, I think you've lived a good day. And if you have many such days in your life, you're living a good life.
That's beautiful. I love it. Yeah, that's so true. All you have in life is a day. I mean, if you can get your day right and do that sequentially, you're set. That's it.
Like, honestly, there's been a phase in my life where sleeping without anxiety has been a dream. You'd always be anxious about, what's happening, what's tomorrow, and all of that. Or you feel like today is not complete. You are not able to do everything that you wanted to do today, and you should just stretch a couple of hours, and something else will get done, which is a big bullshit. Because I feel like unless you are in that content place by the end of the night, by the end of the day,
Yeah.
you're just carrying or propagating today's anxiety into tomorrow, and you're missing out on the point.
Yeah, I really admire my father for this. He's the king of sleep. He can sleep anywhere, go deep. He pretends to be a blue whale and just goes deep in the ocean. And now he told me he goes to a place called Dream City, which is like a fully realized place. I asked him like, where does he park? Like, what does he do? Like, I'm so
Okay,
fascinated by
that's
this.
elaborate. Okay.
Yeah.
And what does it say?
Well, he does all sorts of things and he revisits it every night. I mean, it's unbelievable. It must be lucid
It's
dreaming, I
great.
guess.
Very less people have found with this ability to have continuity in their dreams. That's amazing. What does your dad do?
So he is a traditional Chinese medicine doctor,
There
and
you go.
he does Japanese acupuncture and Chinese herbs, and he's been doing that for like 45 years. So he's very deep into Eastern philosophy and spirituality, and yeah, he's an interesting guy for sure.
I mean, I can say that. Like I said, I've met a lot of people who claim to be at many different places in their spiritual life and progress, but this particular ability to be able to have connected dreams or be in a scape where you're able to call it, okay, I'm going back, I'm going to my dreams. It's a unique ability.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's something everyone, maybe not everyone, but a lot of people would like to have. Um, but I would love to learn more about you. Like, what's your life story? How did you become Navneet? What's the art hippo? Like, what is art for you? You know, I'm really intrigued by the art hippo name. But yeah, like, who are you?
That's just a random story around it. So I've been on social media for a long time, and without, like, how we all start our presence on social media. So it's our life that we're sharing to begin with when Instagram and Facebook started and all of that thing. So I had a handle earlier called Navneet Art, which is just my name and art, because I think around at the same time when I started being on Instagram, I started dabbling into my art side of life. And after about 6 7 years or so, when I was in North America and I was trying to look at how people are growing on these platforms, I realized you need to have something catchy. And then I realized saying Navneet, my full name, is a tough thing for North American people.
Yeah.
So we need to shorten it to something which is kind of nice and quirky. And
Yeah.
this name, my wife came up with it, and it just sounded cute and nice. And I was painting an elephant on a unicycle across Toronto's skyline those days when we were having this discussion. So the art hippo just sounded to fit right in. I was like, okay, yeah, that's a cool name. And I went ahead with it. There's no deep reason or deep story behind it. Even though what came out of it, I'm the art hippo, my wife is the happy soul. So our daughter, she has a Instagram profile. She's 3 years old, and my wife has been really diligent keeping it personal. But she posts one photo of her every day. So when
Wow.
you scroll through the profile, you can see her being born to wherever she is right now.
That's
And
amazing.
her handle is the happy hippo. It's a mix of the art hippo and the happy soul. So I think that's the most interesting thing about the handle that I use. But outside of that, there's not much behind the story of art hippo.
Okay. And I'm curious, like, I'm single right now. How did you meet your wife? Like, what was, how did you guys connect?
That's pretty interesting. She doesn't remember meeting me because the first night that we met, it was through a common friend.
Nice.
And I was late to a party. It was at Hard Rock Cafe in Bangalore, India. By the time I reached the party, everyone was drunk. So these guys were already like pretty drunk, and I walk in and we hit a good chemistry there, only to realize that she has no memory of that night after that night whatsoever because it
Mhm.
was and for me, it was the beginning of something nice. So when I realized she was really drunk in the night, I offered to drop her home. And when I went to drop her home, it's interesting. I didn't know if I was going to see her again or, because she was a friend's friend. Somehow that friend was visiting from Australia. It was a one night meetup kind of thing. And so when I went to drop her at her doorsteps, I asked her for some water. And she gave it to me in a bottle. And I just took that bottle along with me
Okay.
because I wanted to leave that hook that she can, reach out to me back to have a conversation about, oh, your bottle's with me or something like that.
Hmm.
And that started, and then we dated for quite some time. And yeah, but that's how I met my wife.
Excellent. And how long have you been together?
We've been together for almost 10 years now, over 10 years now.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. A decade. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's funny how we still talk about it, and she's like, "I absolutely have no memories of meeting you for the first night." And I show her photos, scrolling through, like, "Yeah, look, there you are." And yes,
Yeah, it's like saying you're not memorable at all. Like I, don't, I didn't remember it.
uh, I mean, I could take that.
Yeah.
I could take that. She would be the first person to say that if she did.
That's funny.
So
Um,
you're single.
what's that?
You said you're single.
Yes, I am single currently, but
Mm.
there is somebody I've met recently, so I'm trying not to get too ahead of myself. But so for now, I say I'm single because that's accurate. But in the future, near future, that may change.
It may because I can see that smile on your face. That you smiled.
Thanks. Yeah, continuing the interview, like something I'm curious about is like what excites or fascinates you? Like what captivates your attention?
That's interesting. Anything that I think a lot of things excite me, a lot of things fascinate me. And I'm one of those people for whom whatever I just focus my attention to, it starts fascinating me if I pay attention for a long time. And that's the good part because when I look at my life journey, which has been a long journey,
Hmm.
um, I realize that I've been fascinated with many different things at many different points of time. It's sometimes it's been a knowledge of objects, sometimes it's been about doing something, creating something. Sometimes it's about, poetry, writing, art, painting. When I was doing my master's in business administration, the world fascinated me. How we have come to where we are right now fascinated me. The history of capitalism fascinated me. And as of now, I think what I find most fascinating is humans. We are a very, very unique thing, we're all over the place. We have a common ground. Still, we aren't able to accept either of these two ends. Um, one of the most fascinating things I find is how people react under different circumstances, and how it is mostly, you know, the reaction is most of the time is it's not a response to the exact current stimulus, but it is a built up of everything that I've gone through, that they have gone through, and how um, even though if we look at interactions which are in the moment, they are affected by past, present, and future all together at once.
Hmm.
For example, right now you're here in front of me with some expectations of how this answer will come out, or how this podcast is going to turn out. And then you have a history, you have a past of,
Hmm.
whatever you did last night and whatever you did over last week, which is conditioning your mood and feelings right now. And the third thing is me talking to you.
Yes.
And if there's an outcome of that, it's not just me talking to you, it's that future plus that past plus this moment.
Hmm.
And it's tough to predict. It's tough because we are complicated animals. We
Yeah.
really are.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one of my biggest fascination hooks right now, and I'm working on something which I think I'll be publishing next year. And it's mostly around the inner workings of our own selves that we do not have time in this modern society anymore to pause and think and even reflect upon.
Hmm. Yeah. I was reflecting on what you were saying. Something I was thinking about relating to the brain is that it's this predicting machine. It's always churning out predictions all the time. And the brain is designed to be dissatisfied. And I think when you come to realize that, you can like be more easy on yourself if things aren't going your way or you're feeling uncomfortable or different things. It's like the brain wants a challenge, it wants things to do. And so I've always been confused by the phrase like the pursuit of happiness. Like you just arrive at this place called happiness and you're there. Like I don't know. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but
I think it's the pursuit which brings you happiness.
mm-hmm.
It could be a pursuit of anything, but as long as it's a pursuit, it brings you happiness. If you are pursuing it in the right spirit, in the right energy that it requires you to pursue it with, because otherwise life has very basic needs. Quite honestly, you've seen Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? It
Mm-hmm.
has very basic needs. You can be very self-contained within a tribe and be very happy about the life that you're living in, but then one day you'll start getting bored of it. You'll start getting bored of the perfection you have in your life, because you don't have any pursuit left. You gotta pursue something,
Yes.
right? And that's why you go out of your tribe, you explore world, you realize the same things which you have already realized before you left your tribe, because you knew happiness even back then. But the missing thing was pursuit. And I guess people call it pursuit of happiness because as long as you're pursuing something by your own desire, and you have the right energy, right mindset for it, it is going to bring you happiness.
Hmm. And so maybe for someone listening right now, maybe they're lost and they don't know what to pursue, right? What can they do to find a pursuit?
Well, being a dad of 3-year old, I would say that the feeling of being lost and the feeling of being bored are kind of similar. They sit around the same table.
Hmm.
and and I'll tell to people who are listening the same thing that I tell my daughter, that there is so freaking much in this world to do. How can you get bored? Pick a piece of paper and tear it in small pieces. Like you just bang on the wall and listen to the rhythm of it. If someone tells me that they don't know what to do, it's two things. A, either you are like right now blinded by some kind of grief, sadness, or some emotion which is just not letting that part of you outside, you know, outside of your own head.
Hmm.
Otherwise, how can you think that there's not much to do? I'm lost. I don't know what to do. Just do anything. Get into your shoes. Go for a walk.
Right. Yeah. Always a good
Right?
idea.
Emotion is life, and and whenever anyone feels lost, and I've been in this place in my life for a long time, I've had a phase of addiction. I've had a phase where I've been very suicidal, and I've had a phase where I had to overcome my own mind to come out on the other side. I would say inactivity is your biggest enemy. And if you're feeling lost about what to do, that golden purpose is never going to come to you in a wrapper. You'll never unwrap something which says, "Oh, go paint. This is your purpose. Oh, you know what? You were supposed to be a ballet dancer." No, just go and try doing random things. That's how you find where your life's purpose is, or that's how you find your way out of that lost self that you're in. So yeah, just do. Nike got it right. Just do it. Start with it. That's it. And then you'll figure it out. If you don't like it, do another stuff.
Yeah, no, that was so much good stuff. I really resonate with the boredom piece because like my entire life, I guess I've been blessed that I've never been bored. I mean, at the bare minimum, I'll read like many books. Like there's an endless supply of books that you could read, endless supply of music, endless supply of film, endless supply of Instagram reels, endless supply of YouTube videos.
Well, and the supply for Instagram Reels, yes. That's a topic though, but yes.
But we're living in an age for sure. Like I don't know what they'll call it, but we have an excess, and I think might be overwhelmed by this excess. Um, and what I found that helped me when I was in deep depressions is running. That was the outlet I found. And when I was in the deepest of depression, the running would give me at least a little bit of a high for 15 minutes. And that's not that much in the scheme of a whole day, but it's something, than if I didn't run at all. And
Yeah.
so there's definitely always something you can do. I think one of the deepest problems in society, though, is loneliness. People feeling that they don't have anybody who's listening to them, and how to help somebody like that. Like, personally, I would love that if someone was suicidal and they're about to commit suicide, that they would suddenly get a ring from my phone, and I would, talk to them a little bit and say, like, hey, what's going on? Do you need to, like, maybe we can just, like, go have a dinner together or something, or, like, just something to
Genuine,
get out of that.
authentic connections have become such a rarity in this society. The moment you ask someone, "Hey, what's up? How's it going?" and the response is always, "All good, man." I mean, ah, these days when someone asks me, "Hey, what's up? How's it going?" I sit them down, and I'm like, "There's not a one-word answer. You asked for it. Okay, you gotta listen to it. How it's going."
You asked for it. That's so funny.
Because you're right. It's just about being connected. It's just about communication. When I was going through my phase of addiction, I realized that addiction is not as much as being addicted to something. It is lack of something. It's you trying to fill up that void with something. And that void is just being connected. As humans, we are like, we branch out in this world, and we need to stay connected with those people who refuel our energies, who refuel our psyche, our feelings, who validate the existential leap for us that no matter where you are inside your mind, you should know it's okay. You should know that there are more than one of us who feel like this. You should know that you're not alone. But we don't get to those parts in conversation anywhere close to these days. Unless it's a close friend of yours who you're meeting, and he's telling you all of this. It's awkward to just go around and say, "Okay, listen, guys, I'm standing on the side of a road today. I'm feeling very depressed and I'm feeling suicidal." And everyone will think that you've gone nuts.
Yeah.
But yes, it's just to let them know that everyone's lonely, and there are a lot of people out there who are lonely. It's not something that just you have to feel or go through alone. Yeah.
Yeah, that reminds me of a quote from the writer James Baldwin that I love, where he says, "You think your heartbreak and your despair is yours, but then you read, and you learn about all these other struggles that other people do." And that's the beautiful thing I love about reading is like you get inside someone's mind, and you get to see their perspective, and you get to learn from their mistakes, and take away what you can. And It makes me sad. Like something I love to do is walk out with like a book in my hand. Like that's my definition of freedom. Like just walking outside with nothing but a book. But whenever I go to a train station or I'm taking a train to Amsterdam, for instance, I don't see anybody with a book. I'm the only one. And you
You see
know,
people with phones. You see people with phones.
oh yes, oh yes.
No, I mean that's true, and I think the phone culture is adding more to the disconnectedness that we have. I travel to work. I look at the subway that I'm traveling in, and everyone's like neck is like this, and hand is on the phone,
Yeah.
and everyone's like taking that juice out of that global entertainment, cheap entertainment pool that we have, scrolling through reels and
Mhm.
and filling up their mind with so much shit before 9 o'clock hits and they're at work. And I'm like, you already have done this to your mind before you started your day at work. How will you have coherency? But that's the state of things that we're in. It's not something that we say or do will change people's mind. It's just the availability of this kind of nugget sized media and the devices that we have, that we have stopped waiting and looking outside the window. We have stopped feeling the wind on our hair. We
Mm.
have stopped feeling the smell of an old book, the papers of an old book. Yeah, it's a sad state of affairs, quite honestly, of how our attention is now just into a digital reality instead of the actual reality around us.
Yeah, and something I wanted to add is just that, like when I'm on a train, um, when someone's looking at their phone, they're depriving themselves the opportunity to meet somebody. Like in the past, you would just have a conversation,
Yeah,
and it was a beautiful thing. Uh, there was one I call it like a glitch in the matrix. So like I was on the train because I do it every weekend. I go to Amsterdam, so I go on the train. So if there's any difference, I notice.
yeah.
And this girl next to me was doing art. She was drawing and doing these things, and I'm like, "What is this? What is going on?" You know?
And then you start staring at it because like
Yeah,
that's the only thing which stands out of all the 100 phones that I see in people's hand.
yeah,
And yeah, no,
exactly.
I absolutely agree with you. It's the same thing as boredom, right? Like unless you reach to that place, you don't know what's creative enough for you. And unless you have that gap in your lives, you will not know that you can fill it by connecting with other people. You're just trying to stop gap by filling it with random bullshit, random information. Your brain even doesn't need that much information.
Yeah, it's true. Man, something that I've started doing recently is just recognizing how much I consume things and just making the switch from consumption to creation, basically. So instead of reading so many books, writing much more. Instead of, and I don't know how to make a movie, but that takes a lot more. But like, you know what I mean. It's just it's a shift, and also just being used to just sitting still and being bored and just letting your mind wander. I love going to a park and just sitting in a bench and just letting my thoughts coalesce. It's very therapeutic, and again, I don't see many people doing that.
It's rare. It's you're right. It's therapeutic. It's something that our bodies, our mind, our beings need, quite honestly. My favorite thing to do with my 3-year-old is to go lie down in our backyard and we just watch the sky, and then we'll randomly make shapes out of clouds and we're like, look, Papa, that one looks like a piggy, that one looks like a horsey. And that's so much fun.
Yeah,
Like that, if you just lie down for half an hour, you feel like this is the best time I've had through the day.
yeah, absolutely. And if you did that without a child, if you're just doing that by yourself, they probably think you're on drugs or something, or you're something's wrong, you know.
You're right, and that's the sad part of the state of society that we have come to. You're absolutely right. If I go and lie near my park near my home, and I'm just by myself and watching the sky, I'm sure people will start thinking that way.
Let them think what they will. It doesn't matter. You're high on life.
That's, that is absolutely true. But you're right on that part that we need to slow down. I think we need to, if there was a word which was opposite of evolve, if we could call it devolve, we probably need to devolve a little bit. Like
Yes.
we're going too fast somewhere. We have no freaking clue where, but we're going too fast somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere we took the wrong turn. It's I think meditation, like I'm a big advocate for that. I've been meditating for the past 10 years. I started when I was 19. And the beautiful thing about meditation is, I mean, for me, I just get a deeper appreciation of my body, how my mind works. It's a beautiful way to start the day. And I remember Russell Simmons, who founded Def Jam Records. He's a big meditator. And someone in the audience said, well, I don't have 20 minutes to meditate. And he said, if you don't have 20 minutes, then you need 2 hours.
That's true. That is absolutely true. If you don't have 20 minutes, then you need 2 hours. That's good. And it's good to know that you've been a decade-long meditation practitioner that way. Because I was just talking to my brother last night, and we were talking about meditation. What a coincidence it is. Um, and we were talking about it, and I was just telling him that there's so much of you know fuzziness around this word meditation, because people just don't understand. Okay, I sat down, my spine is straight, my eyes are closed. What now?
Right. I'm not feeling anything.
and, and those 10 minutes are painful, horrible for people who are just trying to sit there and do nothing.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of it. Like sometimes you need to allow your body machine mechanism to experience what doing nothing means, because we're always on this high alert mode, always trying to be um, attentive or attuned to the environment outside of us, that we hardly close our eyes and look inside of us. So it's beautiful. In your 10 years of meditation, what did you realize the practice was?
Like what did I get out of it, or what did I see it
Well,
as?
yeah, I mean, there are many things which go around meditation. One is like, try concentrating on something, try emptying your mind, try focusing on your breath.
Yes.
And then these are like just the beginning of steps. And then when you go around reading a little bit deeper, you realize there are all sorts of things that people would say you should try doing when you're meditating.
Yes.
That's the confusing part. So 10 years is a long time, because by that time, people realize what exactly it is. So what did you realize?
Okay, so here's the secrets behind it. It's very simple what I do. And I detail this in my book, Towards an Effortless Living, which builds on meditation. That's like the big rock of it. But I learned something from my dad, which is a frequent thing. And what you have to do when you're meditating is give your mind a task. And so a simple one is you count. So you inhale, count to 1, exhale. Inhale, count to 2, exhale. Count to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and repeat for 9 repetitions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Again, 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 again. Why do you do this? Because if you lose count and you don't know what number you are, you know you got distracted. Your mind wandered. So you start again. And it's so simple and so effective, right? I feel like people would be charging, this outrageous fee for like a meditation course or whatever to teach this. You're not like transcendental meditation is $1,000 to learn a mantra. And okay, maybe it's powerful, but I think this technique works just fine, and I gave it away for free. There we go.
That's brilliant, and you're absolutely right. Like it's this simple muscle flex in your brain where you can have this ability that whenever you've wandered, you realize it and you can bring yourself back to a point. That's it. It's an exercise. Do it, do it, do it, and slowly you start doing it unconsciously through your life, through your day, and you you start gaining the ability to drop things and come back to a state, right? I think that's the beauty of it, because that eventually starts making you less anxious, a person who's less randomly lost in their thoughts, and you start changing as a person because of that. So it's a beautiful thing to say.
Yeah, and I was reminded of one of my favorite guests I had on this podcast named Preston Bryant. I asked him, "What are you grateful for?" And he responded, "I'm grateful I am not my thoughts."
That is a big deal to say, because
Yeah.
I tell you, We are all our thoughts. Like if I have a Six Sigma kind of number going on, I would say 99.9999999% of the people, we are all our thoughts.
Yeah.
We think we are that one singular thread that's going in and commanding us. It's a beautiful thing to say that we are not our thoughts.
Yeah,
And I
it's
think more and
liberating.
more people need to realize that. More and more people need to realize that.
Hmm. Yeah, because if you're depressed, you're gonna be having this voice in your head that tells you you're worthless. And you know,
And
it's tough.
it's, it starts all sort of games, and then you have this one voice, and then you start getting the second voice, and then you have these two voices going against each other, and then your mind is like a symphony orchestra, voices and voices, and then now before you know it, you're partway schizophrenic, part depressed, and you're like, what the hell am I doing? And then another voice will respond, it's okay, don't worry.
No, that's so interesting. To get back to you though, because this interview is for you, or about you, how do you go about creating? Because I think a lot of people feel like, oh, I'm not a creative person, I can't do this. Like, how do you approach creativity and your work in art?
That's a good question because a lot of times I've been in that artist block. So it has led me to ask this question to myself, how to create, how to go out breaking this block that I'm in. And I think how I define creativity is flow. The starting point hardly matters. I don't think it's about the starting point, it's about the flow. You can start anywhere in a process, in a piece, but as long as you go ahead with a certain kind of rhythm, certain kind of flow, certain kind of attitude that you are able to derive happiness, pleasure out of it, you are creative. And like I said earlier, just taking a piece of paper and folding it in 20 different ways
Yeah.
makes you creative. Tearing it up in 20 different ways makes you creative. You don't have to think of that Picasso's cubistic mindset of how do I interpret this person's face to make it beautiful and creative. No, not at all. Just toss something in the air, and if it's windy, you'll see it wave, and that's creative.
Yes. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, people have a lot of. I think this word creativity and this societal urgency that I see these days about being creative is also very misleading because creativity comes from flow, and you can't be forced into flow.
Yes.
You have to get into flow. There've been times when I would sit in front of a canvas with all my paints, and bright, nice sunlight is coming in, and that's how the evening comes to be. And I have not had a single stroke or anything. Everything that I did was in my mind. I've been thinking, look, okay, I want to make this. I want to start here, and your body doesn't respond because it's all going in your head. But the moment your mind and your body both are into it, you are creative. Jump in a puddle. That's pretty.
That reminds me of this passage from Neil deGrasse Tyson. I'm a big fan of his. And someone was saying, how can I make my child like a scientist? And he said, get out of their way. If they're jumping into a puddle, let them jump into the puddle. If they're taking the frying pans and hitting them together, let them do that. If you want them to be a scientist, put a pair of binoculars on a table and just see if they interact with it and do something with it. And they probably will.
I believe in this so much because parenting, makes you realize or reinforce these parts of yourself. It asks you to reconsider your biases about how you think people are raised and everything. And and I agree with you. The best available option is to get out of their way. Your job is to make sure that they're safe. They're not hurting themselves or doing something which they'll end up in hurting themselves. It's called risky play, risky supervised play. But just get out of the way. Give them that pair of binoculars and let them go in the backyard. Give them that paint brush and the bucket of paint and let them make a mess.
Yeah.
Don't tell them this is how you do it. They will figure it out eventually
course.
after watching you, after seeing you, after seeing the world. But for now, let them interact, because that's the play, that's the creativity, that's the fun. They have never heard a egg crack before. They have never seen a glass shattered on the ground before.
Yeah.
All of that is play. All of that is pretty creative for them.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And right now, I'm just thinking of my nephew. I'm an uncle, and my brother has a son who's 2 years old soon, named Jaspy. And he sent me a video recently of him trying to play the piano, where he's just hitting it with his fist, this kind of thing. And so I would just want to just suggest here, just loosen your hand a little bit, touch a finger, because when people don't know how to play the piano, they're afraid that it's gonna electrocute them, right? Like if you hit the wrong note, everything goes to shit. And the truth is, there is no wrong note. Like Miles Davis said it best. He said it's not a wrong note until you miss the next note afterwards. It's what you do with it, and that's it.
Exactly, you flow with it. And if you make a wrong note, don't stop.
Yes.
Just go with it. And that's how you cover it up. Not just cover it up is the wrong word probably. That's how you proceed with doing the right thing. Like you're still playing.
Yeah.
You didn't have to stop.
Yeah. No, there's no rules. There's no rules to it.
There's no rules. There's absolutely no rules. All the rules are the ones that we subconsciously or consciously picked up along the way. All the rules were made for someone else's benefit. Because it was easier for someone else to deal with it. So there's a rule.
Yeah, I think about this recently. With society, they say, "Oh, don't be an artist, don't be a musician, have your daytime job. It's too risky. You're going to be a starving artist, and all these things." And I was talking to my best friend at a diner in Colorado, and we were discussing how it's even if you fail, the upside of, say, creating music, to me, music is the most incredible thing. The upside is so high. Why not try? Why not do something with it? But people get told, no, don't do that, and then they just go to their 9 to 5, and they're in a cubicle, and then they get home, and then they're exhausted, and then they watch Netflix, and then they're looking at their phone, and then they start again, and their life is passing by, and it's so sad. I don't know how to disrupt that cycle.
So one thing which I think is I think it's a behind the scene fact that you would be better off able to manage your life financially if you were in a 9 to 5 than being an artist, right? Because the chances of success and the ability to have a stable source of income and all of that, if you factor that in. But that is not to say that not everyone is a musician, not everyone is an artist. I think the key here is don't don't think of it in terms of the thing which brings you money. Think of it in terms of the thing which brings you joy. And even if you are into a 9 to 5 and your soul is sucked out of your life, in fact, more relevant in that case, you need joy in your life. So after you're done with 9 to 5, after you put your kids to bed, after you have done the dishes in your kitchen, go and read that book, go and write that blog, go and just take out those 30 minutes for yourself. If you have no time, wake up half an hour early, go and watch the sunrise.
Yeah, those are all good ideas.
Yeah, but I think the part that I was trying to get to is that we get a lot hung up in whether an artistic life or a very corporate non-artistic life. I think in the time that we live in, just having a balance between these two is enough, and more than enough, it is required. Because, like I said, not everyone, and I've been a part of a big art circles here in Toronto and back in India and everywhere, and I see struggling artists. It's not an imaginary word. Struggling artist is a real thing. How many people do you see get excited about painting and they're like, oh no, I need that in my kitchen. I need that in my living room. No. I mean, yeah, of course.
I would, but most people
in the bigger
don't.
picture, no. You can't feed those many hands holding a brush with this equation that everyone's gonna have a piece of their art somewhere in their living room. Yeah. So I think we have to get the narrative right. Art is for joy, and And joy is for life. So stop thinking in terms of your work and your money and all of that. It's good someday if you're amazing, it'll make you money.
Yeah,
But
sure.
that's not the objective, and that shouldn't be the objective
Yeah.
because that's when people start spiraling out.
Yeah, no, that's well said. I was thinking just now of the psychologist Jordan Peterson. He had this piece talking about creativity, and he said if you're a creative person, you have to create. Like that's something you just have to do. There's always going to be difficulty with monetizing the art, and the odds are against you in this. But that's your nature. You need to create, or else you're going to be miserable. And I really that really resonated with me because growing up, I was always good at school and I got caught up with mathematics and economics and these different things. But it was always in the background where I'm like, yeah, I love music and I love writing and I love these things. And it was always in the background. And now it's coming to the foreground, you know? And it's an amazing thing to just say, like, what if? What if I just tried this? Okay, it's not, I'm not quitting my day job and leaving everything. It's just, why don't I just try?
Absolutely. Again, like get some of that joy back in your life, which has been sucked out by otherwise chemistry, philosophy, and mathematics lectures.
Yeah, exactly.
No, John Pearson is from Toronto. I
Oh,
saw
yeah.
him on subway when we were traveling.
Really? Okay,
Yeah,
interesting.
I mean, you can see him around University of Toronto. Yeah, every
Still,
now and then.
or like I don't know what he's doing now. I mean, he's doing his tours and things, but he still lives in
I'm
Toronto.
sure. I'm sure he's a very celebrated
Yeah,
professor now. So I'm
yeah,
sure that time is more split on tours than classes and lectures. But his take on creativity and his take on art is absolutely something that I appreciate because
yeah,
what he says about if you're a creative person, you need to create is quite true.
mhm,
Um, and that's where for a creative person this imaginary box of getting into inside a creative block, artist block, is the worst thing that can happen. Because as a person, as their nature, they need to keep on doing something. They need to keep on creating something. But their mind is now telling them that, okay, you know what, I'm too confused. Like, I don't know what to do next. And then they get into this state of inertia, which is very toxic and very potent at the same time because it can keep you in that state of inertia for a long time. It can make you actually believe that you don't know what to do next,
mhm,
while all the time it's just you needing to do something. Just do something and you'll get out of it.
yeah. So often we're just in our way. We're in our own way, and
Yes.
we have these voices in our head about why we're not good enough or why we can't do it. And I want to share a brief anecdote that really like changed my life. Where I was invited, Kara Cruikshank. She was on my podcast, and she does these Cafe de la Culture events that bring in like all these different cultural artists and speakers and musicians. It's like it's really cool. And she was finally doing an event in Boulder, so I went, which is where I'm from. And immediately when I walked in, I was talking to this attractive woman, and she had asked me straight up, "Are you an artist?" And I had to stop because I've never thought about that before. And I just told her, I'm like, "Well, I play music and I write, but I don't know if I'm an artist." And then she goes, "You're an artist." And that totally changed how I saw myself, because I love artists and I never thought that I was one for some reason. So that was like, yeah, potentially life changing, yeah, kind of moment for me.
it it is a lot of wrong notion about what is an artist and who is an artist, and we don't have a clear definition of it. I think we need to lower our baseline and just start with this fact that everyone is an artist.
Yeah,
Some people get conditioned out of it, but I haven't seen a child who does not want to try on new things. Like I am yet to see a child who's like, no, 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 I'm not gonna do that.
so true.
as as we are born, we are naturally curious, and all of us are artists as long as we are allowed to derive pleasure out of the things that we do slash create. Okay, it's just that along the way, a lot of time we are taught forcefully that okay, this is not the right thing to do, or this is not the thing that should give you pleasure. But at the end of it, I've seen a lot of people who go through a long journey in their life to realize what their true form of art is, or what is it that they actually enjoy. And in most cases, it happens to be something that they were really fond of when they were a kid. But they took those 20 years to go over their life and realize that, okay, you know what I love? I love sticking fall leaves on a canvas and pouring acrylic glass on them. Wow. I mean, that's what they did when they were 3 years old.
No, everything you said was beautiful. Like it's just, I look at my nephew Jaspy, and it's like you're right. He doesn't need any motivation. He doesn't need you to tell. He just goes, and he's particularly very active. I mean, like, oh my God, he's just all over the place. It's amazing, and he has the most charming smile you can imagine. So my brother says he gets annoyed by this, but whenever they live in New York in Hudson Valley, and whenever they go downtown with their child, um, all the strangers think they've had an amazing connection with Jasper, just looking into his eyes and that kind of thing. And they say like, I think he really likes me. And my brother's like, he's like that with everybody.
Oh, he's a really open soul.
Yeah.
Nobody has told me not to look at him, not to interact
Yes.
with him. He goes to everyone with the same openness, and
Yeah, it's beautiful.
it pays off.
Yeah, no, that was really nice. I guess something I'm curious about is if you had a message to say to the world, like if imagine like a billion people were listening or something, like what would you say?
Slow down. Slow down. And acknowledge that it's too much. We we don't. Um, if you come down to it, you realize that the only few things and a handful of things that you need to be happy and to make others happy around you. And you realize this as you grow up, as you grow older in your life. But if you can early on, slow down. There's no destination that we're rushing to at this great speed that we are. And slowing down is only going to make us better. I think we have all the tools and the technologies and abundance. We live in an era of abundance. There's nothing that falls short for anyone if we just slow down, think about it, and understand how to redistribute. If we just slow down, think about it, and understand what matters. I think one of the biggest things that the world needs to hear right now is someone telling them that it's okay to slow down.
Yeah, and to add, I think the voice that says that should be Alan Watts. His voice.
Alan Watts?
Yeah.
Oh, I love Alan Watts.
He would
Oh,
deliver the message. Yeah.
yes. Yeah, I've had an Alan Watts phase in my life.
Yes.
That guy and his voice is amazing.
Magic.
Magic, yeah. And there's something about people of that stature, that kind, their voices are melodious and magic. I actually I picked up on this thing, and let's see what you think about it.
Okay.
Any good orator, okay, people who you listen to just first time and you're like, no, that's good, that's impressive voice and rhythm and everything. You take their voice and you'll realize there's a particular octave going on. There's a particular, you can overlay music on their voice because they're talking in melody. It's the gap and the pauses and the spaces that they're taking in saying the same thing. So in that analogy, our communication is very much music-like. We don't talk in words. We don't talk in sentences. What we actually talk in is in rhythms and those notes with which we talk. And you see this being picked up by kids very much. Like kids pick up on those nuances of their parents. They would start talking like how their parents would do. It's less about the words and the things, more about the tone and the pauses and the rhythm in their voice.
Yeah.
So think any particular personality that you adore of, and next time that you do an experimentation, just overlay a background music on their voice, and you'll realize that it is always in sync.
That's great. Yeah, I'll definitely remember that. I was just thinking, I love watching Masterclass, and they had one with Hans Zimmer, And Hans
Mm.
Zimmer, in the first lesson, he says, I don't speak in words, I speak through the piano. And that was everything to me. I'm like, okay, I get it. Like, message received, yeah. He's
Touche.
something
No,
else.
absolutely.
Okay, so another question I have is, okay, this should be interesting. Who would you most love to have a coffee conversation with?
You know this person, Osho,
Yes,
Rajneesh.
I've heard of the name, yeah.
Um, that's a person I would love to have a coffee and a conversation with. He's the biggest, most badass spiritual guy that I know of, and I would just want to sit with him if it was possible. He's not there anymore. But if it was possible for me to just sit in his presence and understand and grasp his aura, I would give all my money for that. I will give all my opportunities for that, because more often than not, I feel like more often than not, I feel like it's people's energies and people's auras which affect you. And in cases of spirituality, if you are inclined towards spirituality, we realize that meeting that person or being in the presence of that person, those kind of people, is very important, because there is something around them. So if I had a chance, if I had an option, I would love to have a coffee with him. I would love to understand how he was creating a cult around him, and 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 what was his end goal? Like, where was he going with all of that?
Mm. Yeah,
I don't
that's
know if you
beautiful.
know the story behind him, but he was an Indian spiritual guru who moved to US and bought around 8,000 acres of land in US
Wow.
and started his own city, uh, with his own culture,
Yeah.
and with his, like, it was a fully self-sustained city in um, I forget the name right now, but it became massive and so established to a point that the federal government had to intervene to get that all dismantled, because it was just growing a different kind of spiritual center. um, and and as people, we are very afraid when anything bold like this happens in the world. Like, the first impression that we get is fear. Like, what? I don't know anything about that. How can people do that? But there was a strong message in his life and embodiment, which I totally believe. And it was all about play, and it was all about joy. And he used to believe that unless you have joy in something, you're pursuing the wrong thing. And you shouldn't struggle in finding joy in the wrong thing. Instead, you should change the thing itself, because joy is bound to be for you somewhere or the else. You just haven't explored the spectrum enough.
Yeah, I connect with that deeply. For a long time, I wanted to do a PhD in economics since I was 20 years old. And it was just something I was pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. And then finally, this year, this is why I moved to Utrecht, I was doing a research master's in multidisciplinary economics, and it would feed into a PhD. So I thought, okay, this is my ticket. And then I took the first midterm of econometrics, and I got a 4 out of 10, and in the Dutch system, an 8 is like an A, a 7 is like a B. So a 4 is an F. And I studied so hard. I put everything into this. And I'm like, okay, now what? you know, like this isn't working. And then I took other courses and it was similar. And as soon as it was the most beautiful thing. I was going to say, like, the best thing that ever happened to me was that 4 out of 10. Because then I learned this isn't what I'm meant to do. And I saved myself the heartbreak and the stress that I would have had if I had been accepted to a PhD in economics. And the beautiful thing is, what emerged after me leaving that program was putting a concentrated effort into this podcast, Roundtable Chats. And it was my mother who said, hey, you created this thing back in 2018 and you stopped doing it, but just try again, And so that was it. And we'll see where it goes. But Yeah, what you said just really resonated with me.
Wise words. Your mother is a wise woman.
Yes. Yes.
No, absolutely. Because it's tough for us to sometimes admit that we messed up, we made a wrong decision, and more than wrong, it's sometimes you don't know what you don't know until you get into it, right?
Yeah.
And the ability to raise your hand and say that, okay, you know what, this isn't for me, is bravery. So for that, what you just did with your life and career and educational pursuit is a brave thing to do.
Thank you.
That is a brave thing to do. Yeah. What else do you want to talk about?
Yeah, no, I was just thinking, when I was going through it, I talked to a lot of family friends and things like that when I was going to drop out. And one thing that resonated with me was they said, like, oh, that's such a beautiful thing that you're leaving, because so many people are, stuck in a job that they hate, and then they just never quit. They never let go. And it's a strange phenomenon. And I was totally in that mindset as well, where we think we have to do something, even if it's painful and only painful. It's very strange.
It is strange. And then we perpetuate this pain through generations and through society, and we end up with a generation of people who are confused about what they're doing, but they're still going on doing it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I've changed my life so many times, and from such a young age that I think very early on I realized this thing that if something is not for you, it's okay. It's absolutely okay that it's not for you. I left my home when I was 12 years old, because the place that I come from in India is a very poor and a very, at that point of time, was a very backward place. So they didn't have education or any school which could teach children up to even standard 10th or anything like that. So my parents, they sent me to a boarding school. Uh, Pretty interesting boarding school. it was, it was, it was a proper, how do I say, a faith-driven boarding school where everything was about religion and Hinduism. We would pray like 10 times through the day before having a meal, after having a meal. The first thing that we wake up to, we pray and all of that. It was a very strange arrangement. And then I realized it's not working out for me. And I was very young. I'm talking about this thing when I was like in grade 7th or something. And I did not know how to say this to my parents because they worked so hard to put me in that place and for my own development and everything. So I didn't know how to tell them that, get me out of this place. Um, so I went around doing something very interesting. I started figuring out how can I shut the whole school down. Okay. There was a central water supply of the school. I was like, if I contaminate the central water supply, they'll need at least a couple of weeks to clean it up and get it back running. And the school was closed for a couple of weeks just because of it's a residential school. Water supply is needed, right, for everyday life. And that's what I did. I went outside. I bought a huge supply of detergent, okay, enough to contaminate the drinking water supply of my boarding school, and I just mixed it there, and so it happened. The school got closed down for a couple of weeks. I was home, and then during that period, I took the time to tell my parents, is there something else that I can do? Any other school that I can go to? And they were noticing this hesitation in me of talking about what happened, why is the school closed and everything. At the end, I had to tell them that I did it. Like, you know what? I was the one who managed to shut the whole residential school down for 2 weeks because I needed to have this conversation with you, Dad, that I cannot live there because it's not working out for me. That was my first experience of trying to be vocal about this fact that it's not working out for me. But since then, I think I went around in all the other phases of my life. I realized that that's the best thing to do. If something is not working out for you, raise your hands and get out of that. place,
Mhm.
right? Life gives you many opportunities, but not many opportunities if you're stuck in the same place forever.
Right. Yeah, it gives you many opportunities, but if you're not listening, if you're not
If you're not
really paying
listening, if you're not out of that one shithole that you've been stuck in, then you're stuck there.
yeah, yeah, and there's a lot of shitholes. There's a
Oh.
lot. Yeah. Okay. No, that was beautiful. To continue. Well, okay. So before I ask this question, how old are you?
I'm 38.
38.
Yep.
Okay. So where are you now, and where would you like to be in 10 years?
Very interesting. People have asked this to me in job interview questions,
Uh-huh.
and my response to them have always been, "This is a shitty question," uh, because I don't know what tomorrow looks like. You're asking me to
Yeah, it's
forecast 10
impossible.
years from
Impossible.
now. 10 years ago, I could not have, in any wildest
Yeah.
imagination, imagined that I would be here living this life doing
Yes.
what I'm doing.
Yes.
So anything that I tell you is going to be pure hypothetically imaginary, and take it with a grain of salt. But where I am right now is I feel like I am at the beginning of a journey at this point of time. I'm launching my first book next month,
Nice.
and I talked about what I'm working on for next year, and for the next decade or so, I think I'm just gonna start talking and letting out to the world the creative pieces that I have been working on over the last 20 years of my life. So I'm at that transition point where I am going ahead, just being myself. And where do I see myself in 10 years is a groovy question, because I don't know if I see myself in 10 years.
No.
I think if my a little older, a little wiser, and I hope healthy. That's where I see myself. I want to see myself in 10 years. And I live in Toronto. I live in Canada.
Yeah.
I see myself somewhere warmer in 10 years.
Yeah.
I've started from that side of the world where it was India and, near the equator, hot weather and everything. And then I have lived a decade in frozen winterland of the world. I think now I have wisdom enough to settle down somewhere in Europe. So that's
Nice.
where I think um, I will be. And I think I'm just going to inspire people along the way to get out of their head and get into this world through all of the works that I plan to publish over the next 10 years or so.
Nice. And yeah, actually, as a convenient follow up, if you could live in any country, what would it be besides
Oh,
Canada?
nice.
Yes.
Yes, I think I would be in Spain.
Spain. What city in
Oh, look at
Spain?
the city, man. Colorful.
Yeah.
Yes, I love the color, the culture,
Hmm.
and the vibrance of that place. And yeah, I think if I had the freedom to rewind or forward at my own pace, I would do that in Spain.
Yeah, I was in Barcelona for only like 2 days, but it was such an incredible experience.
Right?
It
The
was like
vibe, the
a shitty
people.
hostel. The tap water was awful, but the food, the dancing. I got robbed in 2 days. I was only there for 48
Really?
hours, and I got robbed at 6 in the morning after
Oh
dancing.
man.
But it's still like if you're an artist, like oh my god, the architecture is just astounding. So I can understand your appeal for Spain.
Yeah, and the city is also very open for the music that they play there, to the murals that they paint there, and there is a micro economy of art going on in Spain, which is very interesting because um, it takes a lot for economy to mature enough to
Yeah.
have a micro economy going on in arts. You know,
Hmm.
because otherwise people are always running around the bigger thing, the capitalistic things of life. But to be mature enough where your artists are able to get fed
Right.
is a big deal for a country.
Yes. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
special. Hmm. Absolutely. And the final question I want to ask you, because we're running out of time, what are the most memorable words of advice you have ever received?
it comes from a phase in my life where I thought like everything is done and I'm done. And that advice, it's a short one, it's a one-liner, is there's more to life. That's it. There's more to life. And this one thing has saved me, has helped me navigate my life through more clarity every time I've found myself stuck at crossroads. There is more to life. No matter at any point of time, anywhere you get stuck, you have to realize that there is more to life. And I think that's the most profound thing someone said to me. Also, it came at a time where I needed to hear exactly those words. But yeah, if I can look back, that's the most memorable advice someone has given me.
Navneet, thank you for coming to the roundtable.
Thomas, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this special episode of the Roundtable Chats. If you like what you heard, please share it with your friends and family. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and until next time, goodbye.